Welcome back to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Cressey, and this is our 48th installment of Pinch Hit Friday. Actually, a quick one. We're super busy with renovations going on at Cressey Sports Performance, Florida, and also some cool stuff happening at CSP Mass. But did want to talk about an important topic, and that's recovery. I think this is something that rightfully so has gotten a lot more attention over the last few years. I think it runs in parallel to the greater world, looking closely at longevity and biohacking and how to just feel better day to day and do more with your exercise interventions while recovering. So I think the number one thing that I talk to with a lot of our players that should be top tier with respect to recovery is that you have to establish a hierarchy of what is really the priority immediately. What is the priority over 24 hours? What is the long-term priority? And I think a lot of times we get really caught up with the bells and whistles that are out there in the industry. We see various technologies that are available to athletes. Certainly we have manual therapy resources, nutrition resources, all these different things that we have to consider. So we always want to counsel our athletes about how certain things need to be prioritized more than others. And the first thing I speak to in this recovery, hierarchy, the bottom of the pyramid is really just understanding how to consolidate stress. So if you think about it this way, if we have 7 different exercise exposures, whether that's throwing a bullpen, lifting weights, sprinting, doing whatever it is we need to do, we could spread them out over 7 days and do something every day. Or we could consolidate a couple of them and maybe we have 4 to 5 days of work and 2 to 3 days of recovery type days where there's lower stress. I think the first step before you start to try to manage stress is you start to talk about how you consolidate stress. So where you probably see this the most is, imagine a major league relief pitcher who goes in, throws 12 pitches and gets out of the game. They might go right into the training room and do a bunch of manual resistance arm care exercises. Maybe they go right to their lifting stuff, just so that all that stress is kind of thrown into a 60 to 90 minute block, and it allows them to plan the rest of their week out. I think we see this really, really commonly. In athletes who may always want to lift on the last game of a series before an off day. They don't want to use up that off day when it could be really shifted towards full recovery mode. So a lot of times we talk with athletes about finding ways to consolidate stress. So sometimes we'll see young athletes that go on the road. Maybe they make a start, they throw 4 innings. And one of the things that I'll have them do is do some sprints in the outfield right after that game. Get some consolidated stress, work on a little bit more of a reactive stimulus and then use your day one for full-blown recovery. Maybe it's a little bit of light cardio, it's some mobility circuits, just like a little bit of feel-good stuff to just get a little bit of light blood flow, but not beat you up too much. So over the course of your training week, your training month, you should have these hills and valleys in your overall approach to stress that allow you to be in the best position possible for recovery. So that's the first thing. That's more planning, right? But afterwards, top tier absolutely has to be hydration and nutrition, right? Those things should be happening during your exercise session, right? There's some research to suggest that pre-exercise protein's probably just as important as post-exercise protein. Certainly hydrating throughout is really, really important. In longer bouts, looking at electrolyte solutions that can be helpful for, improving those hydration statuses. So those are really, really important for young athletes, even though they want to look at the fancy complex options. Really, like what you do on the hydration and nutrition front early on makes such a big difference at the 24 and 48 hour mark. The next one I'll say is regain motion, right? We have athletes who lose a lot of motion when they go to pitch, right? Maybe it's shoulder IR, shoulder flexion, or elbow extension. Some of these things are issues that we can go right back to correct right after we finish training. And the sooner we start our intervention, the better off we're going to be. So what I like to do is I like to identify where athletes fall short. We do our evaluation. What are the big limitations to range of motion that they have? And we'll put that into their warm-up. Obviously, we want to address it. We want to optimize some motion before they pick up a baseball. And I'll bold those exercises on their warm-up sheet. And I'll say, at the end of your training session, I want you to go back and repeat the bolded exercise from your warm-up. So maybe it's working on thoracic rotation. Maybe it's working on elbow extension. Whatever it may be, those things are really high priorities. And those are also things that you can come back and you can hit, after a pitching outing. Okay. So, after we talk about consolidating stress and hitting your hydration and nutrition, you want to regain whatever motion you may lose. Certainly, if you're a hypermobile athlete, you might not need to participate in this step because you've got so much motion already. But those athletes that are a little bit stiffer should pay close attention to it. And then obviously the next day, you're going to have to to pay attention to that as well. You might, hold off some of the loss, but there still will probably be a 24, 48 hour kind of a, roadblock that you got to overcome with that. So just be cognizant of staying on top of it over the course of a couple of days. The next thing is sleep, right? Sleep is incredibly overlooked by athletes as a way to, facilitate recovery and overall high performance. We know that the research is very, very clear that if you don't sleep enough, you are more likely to get hurt. Your cognition goes down. Like I know for me personally, if I don't sleep well for a night, I notice I just feel stiffer on the whole. It's harder to get warmed up. I'm not quite as fluid with my emotions. Everything is just better, when I actually go and get a good night's sleep. I had a lot of days where I just felt tight, took a nap, woke up and felt dramatically different. So sleep is really, really high priority. Make sure that you're creating a good environment for sleep. We did a podcast, on this recently where we talked about making the room dark, making it cold. Obviously turn out electronics and, just not being watching TV right up until the time that you go to bed. And then, the next step would obviously be some of the bells and whistles, right? These are outside influences. This could be everything from, seeing a good manual therapist. Massage has been on cave paintings for 5,000 years for a reason, right? It works. Maybe it's using a Mark Pro to really stimulate that lymphatic system, get the blood flow going just a little bit for some free recovery, right? Some people do well with, compression, sleeves or boots. Those are certainly things that are in play. A lot of people like to participate in, contrast interventions. Some people, outfielders who are playing 3 days in a row might want to do ice baths. All these things are at your fingertips, and you just need to try them out and figure out what the right ones are for you. But don't jump to those before you paid attention to hydration, nutrition, sleep, and working on regaining motion. Those are more top tier strategies that will give you bigger payoff than any of the additional options that are out there. And then last but not least, I would say light movement. I think, doing some stuff the next day just to move around lightly is far better than just laying around with passive recovery. It's one reason why I really like Mark Pro. It's a way to kind of stimulate the benefits of light movement without a whole lot of energy expenditure. So that's something that a lot of our athletes have really benefited from over the years, whether we're dealing with a regular recovery scenario or, going and actually hitting some kind of like an injury rehabilitation where we want to be proactive and give them every chance we can to be successful. So big picture, as we come back, we look at these, this recovery hierarchy. Bottom tier is going to be like the foundation of the pyramid is going to be consolidating stress. Just above that, hydration and nutrition. Just above that, some easy interventions to regain motion. Above that, sleep. And then above that, any kind of modality that you can come across, everything from, a stim unit like a Mark Pro to, a hands-on manual therapy intervention to contrast stuff, saunas, hyperbaric chamber, any of that stuff. And then obviously, thereafter looking to light movement, whether it's mobility circuits or, something to that effect can make a big difference. So all these things are important. You just have to understand where they fit in and how they match up with where you are in your training career and what your calendar looks like throughout the year. Well, I hope this is helpful and enjoy your weekend. Thanks for tuning in. This episode is brought to you by AG1, the most comprehensive NSF certified for sport daily nutritional supplement I've ever tried. With so many stressors in life, it can be difficult to maintain effective nutritional habits and give our bodies the nutrients they need to thrive. As a father of 3 young kids and a co-founder of multiple businesses in multiple states on top of still being an avid exerciser, I know that busy schedules can really take their toll on us. Whether it's poor sleep, exercise or life stressors, environmental factors, or simply not eating enough of the right foods, we can often wind up deficient nutritionally. This is where AG1 can really help. It's a game-changing nutritional insurance policy. They simplify the logistics of getting optimal nutrition on a daily basis by giving you just one thing with all the best things. That's why I use it daily, as do several of my family members, and we recommend it to a lot of our top athletes. One scoop of AG1 contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients that work together to fill the nutritional gaps in your diet to support energy, focus, digestion, and recovery. And this can all happen for less than $3 per day and without taking multiple products. While most nutritional supplements come to market and stay stagnant, AG1 continues to obsessively improve this one holistic formula based on the latest research, producing over 50 improvements in the last decade alone. They invest in the most absorbable and natural source of each ingredient and go above and beyond in third-party testing to ensure their customers continue to receive the highest quality and best tasting nutrition happen on the planet. Whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it'll work for you, and it contains less than 1 gram of sugar per serving. They put 75 ingredients through the rigorous NSF certification test to come up with a safe formula that's trusted by some of the world's top athletes, including many of our own at Cressey Sports Performance. Right now, AG1 is giving our listeners a special offer of 10 free travel packets with their first purchase. Just head to drinkag1.com/Cressey and claim this special offer. These travel packets are perfect for supporting your immune system, energy, and gut health while you're traveling for games, training, or simply on the go. They can be great counterbalance to the less than ideal on-the-road food options that are out there for a lot of our traveling baseball players. So if you want to bridge the gap between deficient and optimal and give yourself the best chance of getting nutrient diversity, head to drinkag1.com/Cressey to get 10 free travel packets with your first purchase. Again, that's drinkag1.com/Cressey, Cressey. You won't regret it.